This tutorial covers the 4 fundamental aspects of hand painting: values, shapes, edges, and colors. If you understand these 4 principles, the rest of the process will become much easier for you. To make the learning process clear and practical, we will demonstrate each step using a sphere and a cube, allowing you to understand how these principles apply to different forms. To simplify the process and improve the precision, I will be using a graphics tablet instead of a mouse, which makes painting much more natural and intuitive. Hand painting fundamentals, which is value, shapes, edges, and colors. We will start with the values. The values is the high contrast and low contrast. The high contrast is actually the average light and the average shadow. We will discuss about that in the Krita to show that more clearly. And the low contrast is in between these families or in between these parts. And low contrast is actually more inside of the light family. All of these is connected to each other. The next one is the shapes. So you can see that we have the big shape, medium shape, and small shapes. So you can draw your shapes first and make sure to keep in mind the values. So I will discuss about these later. And the third one is the edges. In the edges we have hard edge, soft, and lost. And then we have the colors. After all done, the color is most important thing if you want to have a very nice art. So you have to use good colors. These 4 fundamental is very important to know. Let's go to Krita. I will demonstrate these 4 fundamentals with a sphere and a cube shape. Let's start with a value on this sphere. So we have the average light tone, and then we have the half tone, and we have the average shadow part. Of course, we have the ambient light of the shadows, which the environment and the ambient is affecting the shadows. And then we have the ambient occlusion, which is the most darkest part in the shadow. And we have the reflected light or the ambient light, which, as I said, the ambient effect, the environment will affect your object. And then we have these highlights or the specular that you will see in this area. If I just turn on this layer, you will see that I divided these into different pieces. So this part is going to be a big shape, and here we have a medium shape and another shape, and then these small shapes. So we can actually draw these shapes, and then we move to the edges. We have hard, soft, and lost edge. So then after drawing the shapes, we can actually remove the edges or using hard, soft, or lost edges. In this area you can see that I used soft edge to have a transition between light and dark average shadow. But in this area you can see that we have lost our edge. So there is no harsh edge. And this area we will see those harsh edges. So let's demonstrate this with this one. We have the shadow and the sphere. So first of all, we can actually select this tool to shape these out. So we draw a big shape, and then we set it. We add another layer, and we want to use a clipping mask, and we press F to fill that area. And you can see that we have the average light and average shadow. Let's move it to actually white. So we have the average light and average shadow, and the darkest point or the highest contrast of the shadow is going to be this one, but I don't use that. So we have to press Ctrl Shift and I to inverse the selection. Because I want to paint the shadow, we have to select an average shadow, and we paste it right here. And let's add another let's remove this one as well, and we add another layer, make it a clipping mask, and now we use the same and we draw another spherical shape, and then let's press Ctrl and Shift and I, and I just move it down, and then we press F to fill that area, and I like to use average or mid-tone, low contrast. I like to select these two layers, Ctrl E to merge them. So now we separated the parts, different parts of it. So we have the light, average light, mid-tone, and average shadow. Now it's time for edges. We want to blend those edges. So hold on Ctrl and select this mid-tone color, and we need to just rotate it a little bit and play around with the size of our brush. I use this kind of brush in Krita. Its name is Chalk Detail. So anyway, we move a little bit closer and we just try to blend these together. And we can hold down Shift and with a pen pressure we can resize it. So this is what we have got so far, and we blended this area. We smoothed out the edges by using it. We soften out the edges, so you can use any kind of these brushes to soften out. For example, let's use this very interesting brush to select it and use a very big brush to just soften out, to mixing these together. And now let's use this one. Now let's move to shadows. I like to add another clipping mask by adding a new layer. And first of all, I like to paint these very important part, which is the ambient occlusion. Now I change my brush. You will see. So the ambient occlusion is the almost darkest part in your actually painting. You can just switch between these two. And then we have these ambient light, which is affecting the shadows. So we, in this case, can use this kind of light. We have another ambient light, or the reflected light on the object. So we can grab the same and just paint on the sphere layer. The highlights. We use the brightest color in this area and we just draw. And you can see we are done with this painting. If you have enjoyed this free tutorial so far, don't forget to support me by subscribing, like, and comment. Also imagine how much more you can learn from my full premium course. The link is in the description. I brought a default cube, and let's demonstrate that how we can soften edges on a cubic shape, or how we can play around with the values and colors and shapes. Remember that we have high contrast and then low contrast. The high contrast and the low contrast should be in between these, and it is going to be in the light family. So this is the highest contrast in our painting, and this one is going to be the darkest. So let's painting. I just select this color and I like to make it just a bit desaturated, and I try to paint over this area. And then we can rotate to paint it a little bit better. So for the brightest part, I like to use most brighter. Since this is the places that the sun is meeting, or the light source is meeting directly. So therefore should be more brighter than the other. And this area at the end, I like to be a little bit darker. And about the edges, I make sure to don't leave any edge to be straight as it is. You can see that I break it and then leave to continue, and I leave it to continue all the way up. Let's do the same thing with this part. In some case, we need to soften these edges. Okay, now it's time for the highlights. So highlights, actually we have single plane reflection, which in this case is going to be this one. So we choose a bright color. And then we have crest light reflection, which is going to be the area such as here. So we have edge and another bevel at the end, at the center of these. So this called for crest light reflection. And the last one is multi-plane reflection. In areas such as this, which multiple plane, these three plane meets each other, is going to be a reflection like this. And the one important thing is that we don't forget is the shadow. For the shadow, we can use these. Or we can make it even darker with the mini occlusion part. So let's paint the reflected light or the ambient light as well. So we sample this color and we just very subtle effect. We will paint and these, and then we need to mix it together. Very subtle color. Actually, we can change the brush instead to have a round brush. It's a lot better. And now we can see it clearly on this area. We can do the same thing, add it here. And the actually environment from sky will affect these a lot, so we can move really bright and just paint around. And that's about it. Hope you learned something out of it, and see you in the next tutorial. In the next tutorial I'm going to deeper, but in this time with 3D software Blender, not with 2D. One last trick is for lossing our edges. Now we worked on these kind of edges, smooth or soft edge, and the hard edge that we will see. This area is hard edge. And then now about the last edge. So we hold on Ctrl to sample the color from here, and I choose this layer for the cube, and I like to move this edge to the last edge. That was about these 4 fundamentals. Hope you learned something out of those, and see you in the next video, which I'm going to dive into Blender 3D and do a couple of practice with all these 4 very important fundamentals in Blender.